Thanks again, Photo Wings, Susie Katz, for making this possible. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kris. I'm also going to encourage you to go to his website, krisgraves.com. His bio is about 6 pages long, so I'm going to give you some highlights. It's pretty awesome. Kris is an artist and a publisher. He's based in New York and California. He's, as he's pointed out, joining us today from Dayton, Ohio, where he has an exhibition opening tonight. Kris is basically been collected everywhere, is exhibited everywhere. He's at the Museum of Modern Art, the Getty Institute. I'm reading here a bit because I don't want to get things wrong. National Portrait Gallery. He is on the board of Blue Sky Gallery, a great photo nonprofit in Oregon. And I love this line from his bio that Kris creates artwork that deals with societal problems and aims to use art as a means to inform people about cultural issues. When Kris applied for the very first year of the Aftermath Project's focus on the American aftermaths of 1492 and 1619, the judges were so excited to see the proposal because, like, I understand we all understand this is a very hard, any aftermath story, any post-conflict story isn't obvious. Like, there aren't guns, you're not covering conflict. You're covering things that in many ways are metaphorical and are layers deep. So to add in on top of that we wanted to look at the aftermaths of colonialism and enslavement is a whole nother level of having to think deeply and conceptually. And Kris's project, as we looked at the work and read what he wrote, it was a stunning way of saying, of wanting to examine the racism that's been like institutionalized in public spaces and in like art world spaces. And it's just, I'm going to let Kris go into it more here, but the thoughtfulness of understanding how what's called redlining in the United States that led to blocking Black homeowners from being able to buy homes. It's just this deep and really complex understanding of how rooted these things are and how we've come to live with them and how we really shouldn't be and how we have to see what's around us. So Kris, I want to bring you into the space here just to tell us a little bit more about the project. Its name is Privileged Mediocrity and the Deceived Within. So just start and show us pictures, and this is a conversation, and I'm going to be asking Kris questions as we go, and please certainly be writing in the Q&A space too. I'll keep an eye out.
Okay, can you see what's on my screen? Is that visible?
It's visible.
Yeah, so
yep. Yeah, we're good.
I've been working on this project named Privileged Mediocrity for I would probably say almost a decade, really. Just kind of compiling photographs of, portraiture made in the landscape, as well as a lot of landscapes and architectural landscapes about America's issues, being like racism in the landscape, gentrification of neighborhoods in and around cities in America, red line districts, which are pretty much where I think maybe now 50, 70, 80 years ago, people were, maybe longer. I mean, it's been happening all over the place, but redlining means people were, specifically Black people, were pushed out of the major cities into across highways and didn't have access to, food or good schools or anything. I mean, access to nothing. So that's pretty much how a lot of American cities were built. I mean, most of the eastern cities in America have been redlined. Even New York City, Boston, Richmond, Virginia. You can, if you name a city, it probably has some discrimination, some heavy discrimination. Chicago. So I wanted to make photographs that showed these pieces of the landscape, but also weren't so obvious. They weren't obviously about like poor people or struggling, or I kind of I get upset when I still see pictures of like a really, anyway, you know what? I'm not going to talk about that because that's a little bit too much. But so also working with like infrastructure problems in the landscape and climate change issues, all that kind of stuff. All the stuff is happening, and how do we see it in the landscape? And that's what I'm trying to get through with my photography.
And Kris, before we let's talk, I love the monument pictures we're seeing here. These, of course, grew out of the protests last summer, and that first one in particular is just so powerful. But can you talk about how you see those issues? Like these vary in many ways. Well, they're longstanding issues too, but how they, for you, they trace through that history of America. You know, like that's deeply rooted and ingrained. And I'm curious how you just, in your own thoughts, define that, or as you're working.
I mean, it's hard and easy to photograph racism in the landscape in America because it's everywhere. And it just leads back to, you know, the beginnings of the country. I mean, first colonialism of like, you know, Native Americans being murdered in mass by, you know, Spanish and sometimes French and British forces that just wanted land or to expand or to be free or whatever. You know, like it begins with 120 million Native Americans pretty much perishing within a 40-year time span, I believe is what it is. So it begins there, and you can see that in the landscape. I mean, you'll definitely see some things that are ridiculous. And then it gets to slavery, and then it gets to, you know, I haven't done much work with the Chinese men who worked on the railroads, but I'm trying to figure out how to do a little bit of that also, and just show that these issues kind of exist. There's other artists that do work like this, but I'm trying to piece them all together into like one.
Yeah, you have a bigger, I think, canvas for it. One of our finalists, Phil Chung, is doing his specific project is Chinese laborers on the transcontinental railway.
Yeah,
So
and those,
you're
these pictures
pulling
are
this
beautiful.
You know, let's stop for a minute. Phil's work has just been stunning, but you're like painting this American canvas and landscape, which I find really interesting in your work. It's a mosaic in a way that I haven't seen from any other artist working in this space. So talk to us a little bit about some of these images.
Well, I think that it's just kind of, I mean, I may be unfocused. I don't know what it is, but like, it's been so long that I've been working on this project that
you're not unfocused.
Just always looking at every place I'm at, I'm looking for something that that relates to the past and shows the pain of the past, or like how weird it is. Like yesterday I was in I'm in Ohio right now for an exhibition tonight, and like we're passing, I mean, Ohio has a ton of Native American mounds, pretty much pyramids. Like pyramids, I mean, they're covered in grass, but they're like burial mounds for natives, and they're still, you know, they're kept in shape, like they're pristine in the landscape. They have their own parks. Some of them do, some of them really don't, but it's kind of amazing to see that. Like you can be in the middle of like what you'd call one of the more boring cities in the world, like country, not Dayton, but we've been through some really kind of stale places. And then like a mile outside of downtown, you'll see like a mound that's like 50 feet tall that natives built like 1,000 years ago, or, you know, whenever. So
you're not unfocused. Yeah, I don't want you to feel that way. I wasn't putting you on the spot, because I think that's what's so I love. And in the picture like we're looking at right now, like, you know, you in this way you work, in the format in that you're working in, and just sometimes the austerity of your work. You're saying this place, this is my experience of your work. It's like, this place, look here, you know, this is
There's something happening here that we should be like, there's something happening here that I think about, and maybe other people should. Like this market in the middle, it says Old Slave Mart Museum, and what it was a slave market back in Charleston, South Carolina, one of the biggest slave markets in the country, actually. So, you know, that's what that building was, and it still stands there as a museum. Kind of strange. I mean, Charleston, South Carolina is a very strange place. There's a ton of Confederate monuments there. There's a lot of buildings devoted to slavery, because I think 40% of all slaves that came to America came through Charleston. And that's like hundreds of thousands of people through this one city. So all of the remnants of that past are visible.
Wow. And for people who don't know U.S. geography so well, Charleston is on the seaboard. It's a port city.
On the East Coast. Right in the middle of the East Coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I got lucky. I mean, really, I got very fortunate last year to have been working with National Geographic on actually a bunch of jobs, but 3 main jobs. The first job was photographing Richmond, Virginia, and the surrounding area of Richmond, Virginia. And we were photographing, me and my assistant, for 7 days, we went down and photographed well, I didn't know it was like the protest. I mean, we were pretty much photographing a peaceful protest on these Confederate monuments. I mean, and this is kind of what the close-up of those monuments look like. All through town, there's about 7 or 8 Confederate monuments that were being like painted up and just kind of graffitied. And yeah, we went down there to make photographs of the landscape and turned around and made a bunch of photographs of the people in the landscape, which was really important for this project. So I did that job with them, and then a month later, I wanted to go on a different type of trip where, well, I went around for 24 days. I went through 8 southern states with another friend of mine, and we did 4,000 miles in a car, visited 8 states, went from Virginia down to like Selma, Alabama, and then north through like Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So we photographing Confederate monuments. I mean, I think I've photographed about 200 Confederate monuments at this point. There's thousands left, but that was all we could fit into those 24 days. I mean, we photographed a Confederate monument every 25, 30 minutes for 24 days straight, and that's how many exist.
Wow. A question that occurs to me, it's funny because I've been working on a project, I love this photo, but a project that's about reclaiming narratives in painting, and I'm flipping genres of paintings of naked women made by men, and I'm flipping things, and I'm taking the narrative of the painting as I restage it. And in particular, as I look at the monument photographs that you've made, I feel the same idea of a narrative being rewritten, both in the graffiti that's on the monuments and in the way you're photographing them. I'm curious how you, maybe, I don't know if you've articulated that yet or not, the narrative that you're like appropriating back or taking away.
Yeah, for those specific images, or like this image, I call this project latency more than the privileged mediocrity. And latency to me means we're catching up with time. I mean, I think that now this building actually is not named this anymore. I mean, this was found at random on the road. We didn't even know this was there. We just were driving from a Confederate monument to another one, and this was on the side of the road. And I was like, I can't believe that we're just finding random Confederate monuments. And it happened like almost every day we found something that wasn't on a map or marked that was completely devoted to this America's past.
But it's this narrative that's been written there in so many ways, and you're capturing that, and you're reframing it. I think it's so interesting.
I hope I'm reframing it. I mean, I'm just making the photographs of the locations right there. These things are happening. They exist, and I photograph them in this kind of really German, very straight view camera way. And I'm glad that they resonate. I mean, most of the time you make photographs and they don't. So, I can make 1,000 photographs and show one, because that's how I do it.
That's the story of being a photographer. But I do want to ask you a bit about more of that perspective too. And it's very clear to me in this image, the conscious framing in all this work that you do is like, it's so hard. Like you just said, to do a landscape or do a built landscape and have it resonate or mean something. I'm just curious how you're thinking through, even in this frame, like why you chose this spot and what you were moved to accomplish in it.
I think most of the time, I get.
Sorry, I'm not. No,
it's an interesting question. Sometimes you get caught in a trap where you're photographing things from straight on. I mean, I do that a lot where I'm photographing items from like straight ahead, because for a living, I photograph artwork, so it's always like straight or at very specific angles, and I probably use that in the landscape also. But I think that was kind of something I learned when learning how to use a view camera, and like kind of making straight lines and like kind of making things look architecturally proper. So I keep that going with. I mean, now I use a digital camera, but I kind of keep that alive. But so it's pretty much like I think it's like this little historic artifact in my photographs, like the really straight lines and like that. But then also, I think when I see something for the first time, like when we were driving on the road, I probably saw this at this angle, and then wanted to like roll back and take a picture of it from that angle, because it's like the first time I saw it. Or realistically, there's a lot of stuff happening around this picture that you can't see. Like, I didn't want the corner where on the left side where the road meets the road. I was like, I don't want that because then it takes away from the building itself. On the right side, there's a big tree, so I didn't want that. I wanted it to appear clean, so that the building showed up as like it bounced. Like you have a little light that shines right in the middle of that name where I want you to look. So it's just kind of almost in the center. I try not to be too centered. So,
it's so
it's
thoughtful.
like,
It's just so thoughtful. It's masterful in that way. Cause it's when I first came into photography, like I wasn't as moved by Ache or some of the, the work that was about place. And I've come to admire it so much because like what that you moved, you didn't want that tree. You knew you didn't want the road to close because created the space with such gravity in it and I can't even tell you how much I love the two doors. Right? Like past and future, white and black, or it's a Confederate Union. I mean, there's so much in those two doors.
Yeah, I put this picture online and then someone from this town emailed me mad. They were like really mad. Also, like putting this, I've been able to have access to the Nat Geo Instagram page, and I've put like if I put these up, it's like the best comments. There's like really like great comments, and then there's like comments like just hateful things, and it's like really good to see that mix of commentary on images. I get it. If you go back to any of those Nat Geo Instagrams, like especially of like the George Floyd monument, that is like, I think they had never had more comments than that picture got, which is pretty funny.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't even know what I was talking about, but I think that I try to keep things clean as possible. Photographs just as clean as possible. That means a lot to me to like kind of make sure that you know what I'm talking about within the photographs, just because it could get complicated quick. Like this picture here, I could show you the full monument, but then you couldn't read how crazy this scene is. I mean,
this is one of your more like straight on, like read this, be here.
Yeah, totally. So, I mix that in. I have a whole series of work that, there's a lot of names that come from the same project. And this series is called The Southern Horror. And it's based after a book by Ida B. Wells from the 1800s named Southern Horrors. And it's pretty much about the South and what you see in the South and how it affects people, people negatively over the course of like hundreds of years. And this is just blatant. I mean, this is like out in the open. Everyone can go here. This is not a town this is not a white town. This is like this is 70% black, the town that this is in Georgia / South Carolina border. And, James Brown is from this town. And like, there's other like really famous black people from this town, but this exists down the block from where they all grew up, like 2 blocks away, you can walk and see this. So this is what I want to kind of show in the work, this complication.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if there was a question. I totally forgot.
Did it come? I'm sorry, y'all. Let me look under Q&A. No question there. Let me look under the chat. I don't think so. Do you see one, Kris, that I'm missing?
No, I don't see
Okay, anything. We're okay.
But yeah, if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, or raise your hand, y'all, so we can see you. Yeah. Arthur Ashe, the great black tennis player here, but like, tell us more.
Yeah, well, Arthur Ashe was born in, his statue is actually really, the statue on top that you don't see is not really good. I mean, it's not a good sculpture, meaning it just looks like quite bad. He's not in proportion. There's a whole lot of stuff happening here, but at least they made an Arthur Ashe sculpture. And this is in Richmond, Virginia also, where they have a whole street named Monument Mile, which I don't know if they'll rename that, but it's pretty much 6 Confederate monuments about 5, like 2 blocks away from each other on a long street. And then Arthur Ashe is the last monument on that street, which one is weird. And then 2, I was just photographing the monument because I was down there and we had like a morning free to like not be photographing Confederacy. So I went down there to photograph, and then randomly some kid or some dude drove into the middle of the street, parked in the middle of the street and did that, and then just drove away. And then like pretty crazy. I mean, I wasn't the only person there. I mean, there was like, I think there was someone from the news there also. I mean, not even a newscaster, but just someone who was writing about the monuments. And there was like 10 or 15 people around, saw him do that. And then about I would say 10 minutes later, not even 10 minutes later, 2 women walked up to the monument with like a bucket and water and whatever, like scrapers. and pretty much scraped that White Lives Matter right off immediately. Right. I got pictures of all this, but like, so they're scraping it off.
Yeah, no, so I was gonna say, so didn't hold that. Sorry to interrupt that thought, but so I'm so used to your work being this like monumental stillness in so many ways, and here you captured essentially like a news moment, but it still looks like this monumental stillness. Almost if he's part of that, that structural landscape. And I love the way you've done that.
And thank you very much. I think that is like that straightening of lines and all that. Like if I was a newscaster, I get closer, maybe zoom in, try to focus on his hands doing but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in like the broader picture. Like there's also complicated things on both sides here, right? It's like you see the White Lives Matter, but you see Black Lives Matter painted over it, which is like, there's two sides of this vandalism happening, right? I mean, it's not just, this is not a one-sided issue. There's a lot of things wrong with this picture.
The two doors. It's like those two doors
much,
in a way.
Yeah. And so pretty much they come clean it off, and they were really good. I mean, they finished cleaning it off in like, I don't know, like a minute. And they're scrubbing hard, man. It was kind of amazing. And then he comes back about 5 minutes after that, like parks in the middle of the street and starts to try to wipe off the BLM from it. And he can't get that off. It's like such a weird scene. People are photographing his license plate and just all this. Pretty funny. I mean, probably nothing happened to this guy, and that's probably that's how it goes.
Have you ever made like a triptych of that space to like, here it was, here's this moment you caught, and then the aftermath? No, I'm just curious because you were shooting it. I love what you did. I don't think you need it, but wow.
No, I think it's crazy. Just one is enough. I try not to show more than one picture from a scene ever, just because I think that like, I'm trying to make one good photograph of a location, and then that is what you get. I try not to be a photojournalist about it. Like 8 pictures of the same scene is not what I'm interested in.
Like, yeah, well, like one of them work. No, it's that specificity of what you're saying that I just like love. It's like this moment that look here, and that he becomes part of structural history is nuts.
Yeah, I think it becomes far more diluted if I show like pictures of like, them cleaning it off, and then it is just a documentary of a moment in time, and not about what I'm trying to make the work about.
Yeah.
But this is a sculpture named Stone Mountain outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And it's pretty much the biggest Confederate, or the largest Confederate monument in the world, because they only exist in America. There's a few outside of America, but this one is huge. It's actually bigger than Mount Rushmore. And wow. It was actually started by the man who made Mount Rushmore, and then he quit, and then it was finished by somebody else. That's why it's kind of unfinished. And they actually have a laser light show. This is 3 Confederate generals. At night, they have a laser light show that has these men riding off into the distance on this mountain. I need to go see that at some point, because I think that would be amazing to see.
Oh, that's trippy.
Really terrible. But again, wow. Stone Mountain is like an 80% Black town. And this exists right in the center of town. So yeah, some complications everywhere. And you can see how big it is by you seeing these little trees with the trees on the bottom right there. You can see that those trees are probably 40, 50 feet tall. I think that monument is a few hundred feet, or maybe about 200 feet wide.
Wow.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
Yeah. And the scarring of it into the actual landscape. Another way a narrative gets written, and how does that live with us or get unwritten, or yeah.
So there's a lot of things happening here at this Stone Mountain Park too, because it's one of the biggest campgrounds in all of Georgia. So there's a ton of mixed people, like just people from all over the country and world visiting there to camp with this in the background. And then you can walk up the back, which is probably like a half mile up the mountain, and you do that for exercise. A lot of people just go there for exercise from Atlanta to do that walk up and down. And they never see this side of the mountain. Some people I talked to didn't even know that this was there. They just had been going up this back side of the mountain for a decade and didn't know that this was in front. So it's complicated.
Again, and I just want to drop in a thought there. So and it's part of what we loved in judging the work in your grant, when we decided to give you the grant, it was like all these ways that things are written in who we are. I remember one time thinking through white privilege and not feeling that specifically I had gotten benefits from grants necessarily or anything, but just not being angry about it, but kind of going, well, what benefits have I gotten? And then the day it hit me was like, Sara, it's all white. It's all white. The entire like structure of banking of whatever, it's white. You've gotten a pass, on your whiteness. And I had read an article from a Black woman in the New York Times about being accepted, was a memoir piece, being accepted into Harvard and going to her dentist. And he, said, she goes, oh yeah, I got into Harvard. And he said, which Harvard? And I just thought, well, nobody would ever say that to me as a white person. So it's this, but so there, it's just all those things written on our soul in a way that you just keep bringing out with this very powerful stuff. And thank you for bringing this photo in, because I asked you to, like, I wanted this one to be in here. I just want to hear you talk about, first tell people who might not know who Stonewall Jackson is, and then talk about why
Stonewall
you did
Jackson. Stonewall Jackson is a Virginian Confederate general who, how he died is pretty incredible, but he pretty much died at this location in, I forgot the name of the town, outside of Fredericksburg, Virginia, which also has a ton of Confederate monuments and memorials. I went there. This was the last day of my first trip with Nat Geo. We were driving back to New York, and I wanted to see this one last location, which was this beautiful landscape with this super amazing, very white house on a hill with a blue background. I mean, it was like a perfect day. It was probably 1,000 degrees because it's Virginia in the summertime, but it was a perfect day. And then I saw the gravesite for where Stonewall Jackson died and where he was buried. So I don't usually make self-portraits. And I just felt the need to like sit down next to, or like, kneel next to this guy. I'd just been doing all this work and seeing his name everywhere, all over the place. And I just wanted to make a self-portrait here. So I remembered like this project was different. I mean, it's the first time I ever worked with Nat Geo in the first place. And I was just happy to have done it, completed it, made some pictures that I thought were decent. And then so this was like the last picture of that trip pretty much.
What were you thinking, Kris? What was going through your head when you're there at his grave of this like major Confederate general?
It was empty. I mean, we were there was no one else around. Me and my friend were the only people there. And I was traveling. That's pretty funny. That first trip I was traveling with an Israeli, like another person that pretty much is not comfortable with being in the South. So it was like me and him out there making photographs, and I felt scared as hell. I mean, he was fine. He photographs very complex. His name is Yoav Horesh, and he photographs landscape the way I do, but more in black and white and international. His theme is international, like racism in the landscape, pretty much. But so being with him was comforting, but it was also us in the middle of Virginia countryside where a lot of slavery happened. And I know that's 100 years in the past, but it did not feel good. And every time a car did show up, which didn't happen often, I was definitely aware and, ready to get back in our car to drive away pretty much. That happened a lot on our trip. We definitely were stared at a lot. Got some very, some weird comments thrown at us, racist comments thrown at us. We kept it as safe as possible. And, that's the kind of the story of this photograph. I just wanted to kneel here. So Stonewall Jackson, actually, I photographed. So Stonewall Jackson there was one battle happening, and he was fired upon by friendly fire. So it was a Confederate to Confederate like killing situation. He didn't die then, but he got shot and wounded. And to try to heal him, they cut off his arm because he got shot in the arm or something like that, and it wouldn't stop bleeding. So they had to cut off the arm and amputate him. And then 5 days later, he went back to this home and died, right? Like he just couldn't survive it. But they buried the arm about 100 miles west of here. So I have a picture of that too. It's not in this, you can see it on my website, I believe. And it's pretty much like arm of Stonewall Jackson, and like 5 days before this.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah. That's on government property that is protected by the government of America. The arm. Yeah.
So part of the reason you made a beautiful collection, which we'll get through here. And I had asked you, can you go back to the self-portrait for just a minute? When we saw this was in your proposal for the Aftermath project as well. And you know, we will have photographs from your work for our archives, and we often ask for something that was submitted to frame the work. I was like, wow, this photo has to be in it, because I think what I love is as we keep talking about these narratives and what's written physically in our countryside, to me, in this moment, you have rewritten the entire narrative of this space. You are claiming it as your narrative, and you are like saying, I'm controlling the story now, Stonewall. You know, like, how's that feel? I'm reading my own responses into it. Obviously, I'm not your own intentions are there.
I haven't thought of it that way, but I think that, you know, if you see it that way, then I think maybe other people will too. So
it's huge. And for me, it frames your whole project that's about the landscapes of America. And then I have to go back now, that which I never hadn't thought about before, when I said I love the two doors in the Lee School. It's almost two doors here again, you know, and then two windows, two chimneys. It's an interesting thing I'm looking at in your photos now, just sort of going, oh wow, that kind of, you know, past, present, black, white, white privilege, everybody else. I mean, it's just really interesting. And I really, really love this image.
well, thank you. Yeah, so those pictures I just showed you were pictures I made last year, and I've started to make some more pictures since then that are kind of more broad in sense. Like those are pretty much about racism in the landscape and the like slavery. But then there was like just a few more things happening in the land outside of that. You know, like last year there was a lot of protests and a lot of businesses like shuttering or during that, and kind of still worrying about their glass, which was kind of interesting, like having all these businesses worry about. I mean, of course you have to worry about like your glass and all your stuff in front of your stores, but it was a mixed bag for me. It's like, where's the support really? It's just about like covering your property, but you know, that gets really complicated, I think.
Well, that was part of that discussion, right, of the amount of time that the police were protecting physical property, but not physical bodies. I mean, that was like the whole debate, that is, at least here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And there's a little bit of that in there. And then just been on the road making photographs of the strange things that we come upon on the road. I mean, this is in the middle of, I think, Tennessee, where it's just hotels. This is a hotel, and it's just shaped as these teepees, which I find extremely problematic.
Wow.
In the middle of a problematic town as well. I mean, yeah, so there's things like that going on. In West Virginia, we found this amazing wall. This mural wall was probably a half-mile long, and it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing to see so many murals of this situation. But also very problematic. This is not the most problematic picture that was part of the mural, but it showed the most. I mean, it showed like this agreement, or this kind of fake, this bastardized version of an agreement, right? I mean, it seems like everyone's at peace, but then like down the road, like not even 10 steps away from me, you're seeing the battle. It's just kind of like a weird,
sure,
it was a weird moment.
And I love we have the grass and the building behind it, and that you've placed us in a contemporary space. I have to say, so everybody, I've had the great pleasure of, as Kris has worked in his grant year on it with his Aftermath grant, he's sent me images along the way that I've just been like, you're blowing my mind, Kris. Like, you know, the ways he's thinking through the stories that are in our landscapes, and now you're just seeing a couple of them right here. So I'm gonna just be quiet.
Yeah, they become a little bit, you know, they're a little complicated. I'm glad that you've actually like enjoyed some of them, because they're so coded. I mean, there's some pictures that are just so, like, this is pretty coded. I mean, not really. I mean, some people wouldn't call this racism at all, but I would call it 100% racism.
Tell us why.
Because this is in South Carolina. I mean, this is on the border of South Carolina and North Carolina. It's a highway stop. It's pretty much a place where there's a bunch of games and playtime for kids. And, you know, there's also adult stores, and not roller coasters, but like go-karts. And it's just like a amusement park, but it's themed to be south of the border of Mexico. And it's like totally blatantly racist against, like, you know,
and completely the other side of the country for folks who aren't don't have a U.S. geography basis, and in the and not even in a border between states, not the countries. I love knowing where it is too, but I think it's great.
Yeah, South Carolina has its problems. I'll say that much. So does North Carolina, but South Carolina is pretty bad. And yeah, so Sombrero restaurant, Mexico shop, like all the whole neighborhood, like I would say, like you're seeing 10% of what this looks like, and it's all themed like this. It's pretty, I
Oh,
think it's extremely embarrassing. I mean, like it is just what it is. I mean,
the hat on the dinosaur. Yeah, it's like with this reduction of tropes and stereotypes into this like
there's a
commercial
lot.
space. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's a lot
way
going on.
packed.
So yeah, so I see it. I mean, I also, like our malls are dying. All of these malls that we built have nothing in them anymore. Like this mall, this shopping center is in Syracuse, New York. It died a few years ago, and now the only thing in there is there's a movie theater in the basement and a driving school. And there's like nothing else in this entire mall that had 100 stores or so before, like 10 years ago. And this is pretty
Kris,
much how, yeah.
go ahead. I just gonna tell us what this. So your reasoning on this picture and why it sits in these narratives you're drawing. Where does it fit in that? I love to hear you talk
I
about
think
it.
that we've just been we're trained to want these things as Americans. I mean, like all you see is advertising on television and the malls, art and malls. All you see is advertising. I mean, really, you can't not see advertising when you leave your house. I mean, it's just not. It's everywhere, and that is what the mall is. It's a bunch more advertising where you're buying shit you don't need, and it's kind of like this is a huge American problem. And now these malls will become the huge American problem. There will be empty until they figure out something to do with them, which they will never figure out. They will never give this property to someone who can actually use it or need it. This is land that is like, hey, what, can you house the homeless in a mall? I mean, can you break down the mall to make apartment buildings for people that in need? I mean, that none of that will happen. This mall will just stay empty for 40 more years. That's what will happen instead.
So interesting because in my explorations of American narratives have been around the wealth gap and predatory capitalism and where those things come from, and that whole idea of how much is enough, and that it's wrapped up in this American myth of like westward expansion. We need more. And we're taking things from other people all along the way. But no, we need this, and which leads into consumerism. Like, no, we want to, like you just said, buy all this stuff, and how bankrupt it is in so many ways, and incapable of addressing like, yeah, why don't we have the homeless living in shopping centers?
Yeah.
I haven't seen this one, I don't think. What's this picture? I love it.
I went out to Hawaii because I thought, I mean, Hawaii has a ton of problems, and we're always taught, I mean, as Americans, you think Hawaii and you're like, oh my God, beautiful. I have to go there. It's really one of the nicer places in America. You can be on a beach. It's always sunny. It's a vacation destination, but what that becomes is like an overpopulation of people that were never there before. Hawaii was pretty much stolen by not
Right.
even the government, but 4 or 5 businessmen from America that wanted it and stole it were able and allowed to steal it from a queen who owned it, or that not owned it, but she was the queen of her land.
The
And it
sovereign
now, and
nation. Yeah.
50, 100 years, I guess even like not like 100 years later, it looks like this. It's another shopping mall for rich or Americans. I am part of the problem because I'm in one of these buildings as well in a hotel. Like this is, I'm not saying that I'm not part of this issue, but I'm just trying to show things that are happening here. And this is from Honolulu also.
I love that you had that palm tree, by the way, in that one little thing in the corner that was like, oh yeah, island paradise, against all those right
Yeah.
there at the bottom corner. It's like, yeah, I'm tagging Hawaii.
You are still in paradise, but you're surrounded by the issues of what paradise brings. I mean, the
Wow.
homelessness situation there is out of control for even the white people that live there. I mean, it's a hard place to live. It's very expensive. There's complications. I mean, like I'm at this place looking down at a beautiful, huge pool, but then there's of course people sleeping outside on the street in a bus stop all night, every
Wow.
day,
Yeah.
while people are enjoying their lives above it. So again, I'm part of the problem, but I'm trying to like reconcile some of that.
I
Yeah,
love
so
this.
that was
I
like,
love that it has more blur than a lot of your work too. It's just a slightly different feel. Obviously you're shooting at night and it's a little different, but I love the blur of the people going past by the pool, and it makes me go through a whole other range of questions and thoughts about it.
yeah, I think there's a lot to uncover here. I mean, if you start doing research, if it piques your interest to do research on these situations, you'll figure out that like there are a lot of problems that we never think about. I mean, things that I hadn't thought about before, but now that I know some people that are part of Hawaiian independence movements, I've been intrigued by what they're doing to kind of fight it. You know, police have always, I think, been an enormous problem. I mean, it started as, you know, anyway, police have been a problem. So like all this kind of.
We can do another session on that.
Yeah. I mean, think about like what you're seeing here. That thing on the wall is enormous. I mean, it's probably 20 feet tall. Why is that necessary? This is a police precinct, by the way. It's just a brick building with no windows on the side. You know, it's like, it's kind of an unbelievably ugly thing. And it exists in downtown, the middle of downtown Richmond, Virginia. And why do we need to see this huge? I mean, art is art, but this is kind of ridiculous. So
I love the private parking sign as well. That seems to be very intentional, you know, intentionally seen in a way, like private parking on a police building, you know, with that over, you know, arching figure. It's
yeah. I made sure to park in that parking lot to make this photograph.
Yes.
And then there's like wealth gap issues too. I mean, like Portland, Oregon is another place I went to this year for this, and that is a problematic city for sure. I mean, Portland is a kind of, it started, I mean, I believe, and I don't think I'm misquoting this, but it was pretty much, Oregon was started by racists that wanted to get away from, they wanted a full state for themselves to never have Black people in the state at all. Like, I mean, I think there's, until 4 or 5 years ago, there was laws that prohibited Black people from even being in the state, right? Like there's crazy laws that existed in Portland, or not Portland, but all of Oregon. And now the downtown is filled with protest and closed structures, but they still have that beautiful Rolex watch dangling on top of the protest areas. You know, that is the kind of complications that I want to show in the landscape. This one's actually not in Portland. This one's in San Francisco. I'm figuring this photograph out. I think it's probably one of the weaker photographs in this series, but I'm trying to like, I don't know why.
I love that you wanted to show it. Yeah, what are you working on here?
Well, I think that here is, we're talking about like the destruction of old and the beginning of this kind of new glass landscape that only a few people can afford. And that's kind of what I'm trying to show here. It's kind of coded, but
the red of the stoplight is interesting, you know, like that. I mean, there's like things that to read in there. Sidewalk closed.
Yeah, I'm less poetic about the photographs, I guess, than most people are. I'm trying to make
I'm all in the poetry of it. You just go on and do your thing and be straight up, and I'll just be sitting here going, and I see this metaphor, I see this.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I mean, when we need that, and I think that I've been so into it's been so hard to make these photographs because it's just walking on the streets until you find something. Really, I mean, I don't have an agenda when I'm making photographs, really. So I try to make the photograph as clean as possible and try to get my what I'm trying to say into it, but then the poetry I allow, you know, like go for it with all the poetry. If you could give more, the merrier, I would say.
Just bring me in as your like Greek chorus when you're giving talks or whatever.
I mean, hey, look, if you need a writing job, I got you. We can figure that out. For sure.
I'm here for you.
Again, in Portland, just walking the streets of Portland, random streets, and just finding little pieces of protest on the streets, which is really really cool to see.
I absolutely love the reflection in the water of that puddle of Breonna Taylor, that part of the sign, or is it Black Lives Matter? It's coming through. That's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, it's a cool scene. I mean, it was just a random street and I was bored. I mean, I was super bored that day, and just walking around a lot of streets in Portland and not seeing anything. I mean, I got lucky and made a picture that I thought was actually decent. So happy about that. Sometimes you get lucky. I mean, the next day in Portland, I saw this and I was like, well, there's a scene that you don't often see ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before, where, you know, this Range Rover was pretty much taken over by the homeless to become a shelter, a structure in downtown Portland, Oregon, which is like houses almost 1.5 million people, or maybe, about 1 million people in and outside of Portland. So, and this just is allowed to exist. I mean, this does not look new. This is not like the first day this was there. This has been there for weeks or months or maybe years. And, you know, this is just okay. You know, this is now okay.
Kris, in your explorations, which is stunning, right? And this juxtaposition of ideas and types of structures, Did you ever go in like into Palo Alto or to photograph any of the RVs that where people come and live in RVs that work in high tech? Like during the work, they do it during the work week, and then they drive them home to like homes they can afford that are 3 hours away. Have you seen that? That
No,
reminds me of it. Yeah, it's
no, I
really
have never seen
interesting.
that. I've
In
never been to
front of
Palo Alto.
in front of Stanford University, you'll find it. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
Please,
complications
I
are.
want to see how you see it. So please do that sometime.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I get out to California again, that would be really great to see. I mean, and to speak about California, this is also California. This is definitely more of a coded landscape because, people have been building their houses on this side of the mountain, but you can see some stairs down there in the middle of this photograph because those houses are now in the water. I mean, like realistic, like 4 or 5 of these houses have already fallen into the sea over the past 5-6 years. There's still some left on the back there, but the erosion of the land is happening, and people that built on the side of the road on Route 1 in California are losing their houses. So this is a more complicated part of this project because like this land is pretty much all of our land has been stolen. So it all goes back to natives owning and holding it. And now we've just kind of destroyed it with structures and then destroyed those structures with just like bad planning. And now this mess kind of will exist forever. I mean, no one's ever going to clean this. I mean, these are private properties and they've gone on. They've used their property, the people that owned it, and now have moved on to another place where they can probably do the same thing. But
I see that as so much related to, I really directly related to the 1492, 1619 aftermaths, and is particularly in some ways of the type of capitalism that grew out of slavery, which has been so brilliantly explained in the 1619 project, the New York Times work. But the idea that you can take and own and like with slavery, a human being, oh yeah, well, we can just take and own Mother Nature. We can, and then do anything and wreck it and be not responsible for anything around it. It's a hubris, that winds up looking, in this case, like this. It's such a, I'm always looking for that line in your work.
Yeah, a beautiful scene, otherwise ruined by just man, as most are. And we end here. I mean, this is the last photograph in the series. I didn't show many portraits, but I wanted to kind of show you that there's going to be some portraiture in this project as well that deals with people from all over that deal with these issues and have to work within this landscape that was given to them. So it is dedicated to the people. The book is not about the land, it's about the people. And yeah, so we end there with the slides. But if you guys have any,
tell us about this father and son, maybe. Who are they?
Yeah, father and son just in a lake teaching his son how to swim and like be in the water pretty much.
It's I love that you included a portrait in this space because it adds so much to the way, the journey, the narrative we've taken in the physical landscape. And you bring us back to like, yeah, it's about humans. It's about,
and the books that I'm making some books in January and February. Well, I'm making 2 books in January, which are kind of all the pictures you saw plus about 100 more, or even more than that actually, which will include more portraiture that goes back and forth between those landscapes and the portraits. So you're seeing both, all of it at once, kind of.
So important. Oh, wow. Kris, I thank you for sharing those. I know Kris a bit, obviously, because we got to call him on Zoom and tell him he, won the grant. That's one of my favorite pictures ever of that screenshot. But this has been for me, a treat to get to actually dive in with you and just think through this work and see how your mind works. I'm fascinated by it. And I want to see, so let's see if we've got questions. I see a new message. Dead arm, somebody's repeating, the dead arm of dead Stonewall is buried on government property. Oh yeah. Let me see if you all have any questions. So this is an opportunity for folks who might be interested in applying for the 1492-1619 American Aftermaths grant this year. Kris is, and all of our finalists, actually, it's on the website, aftermathproject.org. The aftermathproject.org. You can read Kris's statement. You can see his work, the work that he applied with. We haven't updated the gallery to his grant year, which we will. Just see the 4 finalists' work in there. And thinking about the work, as you can tell with Kris, is an important part of being able to articulate in a way that the judges will understand. Kris, what kind of thinking went into you'd already been working on the project, but was it a challenge to you I remember being in touch with you during that time about as we came up on the deadline, like, if you were going to apply, how did you frame it? What did you go through to get to that?
The application process itself, I think, well, I only have the work I have, right? So I was realistically showing you the work that I thought fit best the grant. I think that it was 20 images or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily I had the work from that geo that I thought spoke directly to the issues. So, I included some of that, and I included some of the privileged mediocrity work that I've been working on for the last 10 years, and a short, a statement about why I was making the work. And for me, it was pretty simple. It was like 20 images. I have those images. These are the strongest images I could show you. And that's kind of what I did. Show you the strongest ones. For me, it was pretty simple to apply. Like the application process is not a hard part. I think that's kind of, you can, yeah, it's like 20 images in a statement, and like some other like basic profile information. But that was the easy part, making the photographs and thinking about how to be on the road and think about what like the project was a little bit harder. And I'm just glad that you like the stuff, because it could have been just like, I didn't know what you want. I don't know what people really want. A lot of people would want more documentary style, or like something more direct than I've been making. But thanks for liking the stuff, I guess.
Oh, you're so lovely. So y'all, when we give a grant, we don't give it to a photographer to make work that we want. Like, I'm a photographer. Some of you may know that. My work started in post-conflict. It's why I started the Aftermath Project. I wanted to support more people. It was really clear last year that the Aftermath Project, as an American nonprofit, had to start coming to terms with how we could support storytelling around American aftermaths. And my board, when I said I wanted to do that focus for 2021, God love my board. They just said, 1 year isn't enough, Sara. We have to do this for 5. Yeah. And in our commitment to 5 years of funding this subject, we knew we wanted to model for the funding world. This is what it looks like when you pay sustained attention to a conversation that we have to have, because there's so much to unpack here. 5 years isn't enough. There could be a whole Aftermath Project that's only on American aftermath. So what we saw in you, Kris, was like this ability to articulate, through these amazing, photographs. You were articulating narratives and history, and you wrote about it. Your statement isn't read Kris's statement. It's not just, you didn't just like go, I want to make pictures of public spaces. You explained and connected. But the huge honor for me as a photographer who how lucky am I that I had this idea about wanting to support people I wanted to build a post-conflict conversation, and enough people have believed in it that we've had the funding that, I get to give money to people like you to do it. So there wasn't anything we wanted. We were fascinated to see what you would do with a $25,000 grant as our first grant winner in this space. And I'm so proud and excited. I think I've told you, and it might be interesting to people here, that we ultimately, at the end of 5 years, will collect this body of work and want to place it in an archive so it stands as, because I don't think this has been collected in quite this way or articulated in what it will look like after 5 years of consideration of these things. So you have just been like a banner first year for us. And the next winner may be a photojournalist or a documentary photographer. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, you don't have to be like Kris either. So I couldn't, as the person who had envisioned it, you've been like an ideal,
thank you. I appreciate it.
I told you I got you.
I appreciate the support. I've been traveling a lot during, COVID now. This is year 2 of COVID, but I've been traveling a lot making these photographs. So by the end of this year, I will have some more crazy stuff to show you. I promise you that.
And y'all can find Kris on krisgraves.com. His gallery will be updated on the Aftermath Project once we've
I think there's 2 questions before you.
Where? You're finding
that was where. But then somebody raised their hand. I lost the hand raise. I don't know where it went.
Oh, well, here's one I love. Will there be an aftermath publication of Kris's work? Part of the commitment in this 5-year focus, we had done an annual book, many of you might remember, for almost all of our first 10 years with that 10th anniversary. And we are planning to do a book every year of the American Aftermath's grant winner and finalists, back to how we were before. I'm pretty excited because we want to do it with Kris's publishing company that will have our first book next year. There'll be a book of a set of 5 volumes, and then probably a special collector's edition when we reach that. But this work has to exist in that way that people can reach it, not just our website. It's got to be the books. They'll go to, you know, educators, collectors, curators. We want it out there, and there'll be exhibitions as we get going as well. I've had funders come in that are really excited to support this work. So that would be a yes, Molly Mako. I'm not sure if I said that right. And then you have a question, you see it, Kris, from Clinton Osmus about protests. Shall I read it to you? I photograph a lot of protests. Over the summer, there was a movement, I guess you could call it, about white folks not posting their images of these protests and allowing Black voices to rise to the top of this discussion. This is a really interesting question. How do you feel about white photographers, writers, etc., telling this story in America? And how can we share our work and ensure that we're advocating and not exploiting this narrative? And I just love you, Clinton, for saying, hopefully that's worded correctly.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, yeah. Don't well, what is that? There's no don'ts, but there's a way that white people, I shouldn't even say all, because there's a ton of artists in the world that do the work, do good work in this field, white, Black, whatever. But there's a ton of artists in the history of photography that have done the wrong thing and have been applauded and given awards for it. I mean, I could say that, like, you know, to name names, I would say that, like, people in the realm of Steve McCurry, or is that his name? Yeah, Steve McCurry, like people that have worked those National Geographic jobs for, and just kind of didn't want to understand that they were exploiting the people that they were trying to not exploit. Don't do that. I mean, like, leave that type of work behind, where you're going into, I don't even know what it would be like, going into the like a poor space and showing how poor people are. I mean, like, that is something that we've seen already, and it doesn't work. That doesn't work anymore. So it's like, how do you uplift people with your photography or your art in general? So yeah, if you focus on uplifting people and find a good way to do that in your art form, I think that's what you have to do. I mean, that's the wave of the future, I would say, like, uplifting people and figuring out, like, how to show what you're thinking about in your mind. I mean, I can't tell you what to do, because, like, you have an idea about what you'd like to do and you know what you can do. So it's going to be like, how do you use your skills to make something better than you ever made before? I don't know. I mean, that's what I try to do, at least, like, try to make something, you know, every picture that I make, I hope was better than the last. And if it's not, then it's probably a problem. So
That's a step along the way. That's all.
Yeah, one day I'll be a really good photographer, is how I feel.
When I grow up, I love your answer, Kris. And I love that we can even talk on this a bit, because building conversations in this space is really important. And I appreciate Clinton asking in that way. As a white photographer, it sounds like, how do I approach it? What do I do? When we get that question in the grant process for the Aftermath project, we don't put color on who wins the grant or, can be a finalist. I'm proud our first mix, I think there are 2 Black photographers, an Asian photographer, a white photographer. It could be, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering immediately the other, but it was we aren't asking the color of the photographer who's doing the work. We are aware of building a more open playing field. We're aware of the need to be funding people who traditionally have not, had access to funding in the landscape. But and sometimes when white photographers write to me about it, I sometimes say, you can think about collaborating. You can think about, what it looks like if you allow the people you want to work with, let them help you shape the narrative, or give them a camera. Or there's so many ways. A photographer who wanted to work with the Native American tribe in Massachusetts, he he was going to go in, he had his idea and he said something like, I'm going to give them cameras so that they do this. And I wrote back and I said, well, why don't you let them tell you what the narrative is that they want to do, you know, so that it's truly a collaborative project. And it,
Yeah.
you know, not everything has to be done that way, but I think speaking as a white photographer and how I've been trying to learn as well, there are ways just to work differently right now that really matter, that are gonna that Kris says uplift people, and I think also gives authority to people in many ways to be telling their own narrative, which is part of what I love so much in your work, Kris. Your appropriation of a narrative, you know, that's belonged to capitalism and, you know, white supremacy and stuff, and you're like, well, nope, I'm making a new narrative here. So Clinton, I think it's about, you know, how you can help be part of new narratives and new ways of storytelling. And that's what excites us and what we look for in the grant process. And I think that, did we get all the questions, Kris? I know you were looking to.
Somebody raised their hand, but I didn't see a question.
If you raised your hand and want to raise your hand again, we got you. And if you didn't, it's been, wow, we're just a little bit over an hour. We went on. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did, getting to spend some time with Kris Graves. And thanks to 7 Insider for, again, partnering with the Aftermath Project to bring you this talk, and to Photo Wings for making it available to so many of us all for free. And Kris, you know, all respect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yay. See y'all.
Bye.